All right. So first off, let's give all honor, glory, and praise to the Most High, Higher by Hashem Yeshua Wa Kodash for allowing us here on the Sabbath day. All praises. So today's lesson is titled, "Hello, my name is blank, and I'm a blank addict." The first step is admitting you have a problem. Anyone wants to give a shot at what that actually is? Anyone?
Dealing with sin and dealing with like the flesh,
Dealing with
who we are, like as humans, and
right.
having to battle everyday battles and stuff.
And normally you would be right, brother say, dealing with sin, but today's a slide about, or a presentation dealing with health, right? And one of the things that plagues our health, you'll see, especially in the black community, are things that are relevant to this particular topic, right? So this particular topic is dealing with sugar, right? So hello, my name is blank, plug in your name, and I'm a sugar addict. A lot of us don't realize that sugar is way more addictive than heroin and cocaine, and it has worse withdrawal effects than those particular drugs, right? So when you start to understand that everything has been laced or contains some sort of sugar, and being able to identify what sugar is inside some of the products, you can start to now wean yourself off of those sugars and start eliminating a lot of the problems that you're having in your daily routine. Right? So this was an old poem dealing with sugar during slavery times. One of the misconceptions is that we were just dealing with cotton, only harvesting cotton, but we find that, we were dealing with other crops as well. I'll read the notes for that for you in 1 second. Right? I don't know if you can read the poem. It's in that old Quaker English, right? The old script letters, but so sugar planting, harvesting, and processing is tiring, hot, dangerous work and requires a large number of workers whose work habits must be intensely coordinated and controlled. Right? From the very beginning of sugar cultivation in the New World, there were not enough European settlers to satisfy the labor requirements for profitable sugar plantations. Native Americans were enslaved to work on the earliest sugar plantations, especially in Brazil. Those who could escaped from the fields, but many more died due to European diseases, such as smallpox and scarlet fever, and the harsh working conditions on the sugar plantation. A Catholic priest named Bartolomé de las Casas asked King Ferdinand of Spain to protect the Taino Indians of the Caribbean by importing African slaves instead. So around 1505, enslaved Africans were forced brought to the New World. For the next 3.5 centuries, slaves of African origin provided most of the labor for the sugar industry in the Americas. Now, one of the key things is that sugar was so rare of a commodity then that, we take sugar for granted now because it's in such abundance. But a little packet of sugar was held in higher regard than gold, right? It was that rare. So a lot of times people weren't actually using the sugar to show your wealth. They would have sugar statues on like centerpieces for their table because it was such a rare commodity. So understanding what sugar actually is. Sugar is the generic name for sweet tasting soluble carbohydrates, many of which are used in food. The various types of sugar are derived from different sources. Simple sugars are called monosaccharides and include glucose, also known as dextrose, fructose, and galactose. Table sugar or granulated sugar refers to sucrose, a disaccharide of glucose and fructose. In the body, sucrose is hydrolyzed into fructose and glucose. So a lot of that gets, they throw those different terms around, but let me break it down for you, right? Monosaccharides, it comes from the Greek word mono, meaning single, right? So it's the simplest form of sugar and the most basic unit of carbohydrate, right? A disaccharide is also called a double sugar, right? Sugar formed when two of the monosaccharides, simple sugars, are joined by a linkage, right? So whenever you see the word toast at the end of something, that defers, it gives you that recognition that it's actually sugar, right? So when you see fructose, that's sugar that's come from fruit, right? When you see lactose, that's sugar that's derived from the milk, right? So forth and so on. So anything it's good to understand how to identify sugar and where it's actually coming from, right? So there's 56 different names for sugar, right? There's much more than that now. It's much more prevalent. But as you can see, it's very difficult to pinpoint sugar, right? When we think of sugar, they think of table salt. Think of just table sugar, white sugar, right? But there's so many different variations of sugar that you can overlook it, right? You could think you're cutting down on certain types of sugar, but you're still allowing sugar in your body, right? So just to go over some, you have agave nectar, molasses, cane sugar, which we all are well aware of. You have different malts, crystals, right? Syrup is a form of sugar, and even honey. Honey is a form of sugar, right? So all of these different variables go into sugar. So now how does this look when we go to read different types of labels, right? When we see on the labels nutrition facts, right? And on one end it says, total carbohydrates, because as we learned, sugar is just carbohydrates, right? So when you see total carbohydrates, read 37 grams, right? You're thinking, okay, 37 grams is not too bad. But the total amount of sugar, it'll go in and say that the sugar is only 12 grams. So you're thinking, hey, all right, 12 grams of sugar, but you're not counting the actual carbohydrates. So what you would have to do to actually get the correct content value of what sugar is in there, you have to subtract the fiber from the total carbohydrates, and that'll give you your sugar content, right? So they can play with the numbers on it to make it seem as if there's less sugar inside a product than there really is, right? So these are ways, once you start to understand and learn how to read the actual labels, you can understand how to keep a certain amount of sugar out of your body. So we actually do have guidelines for how much sugar our body can actually take on a daily basis, right? And a new World Health Organization guideline recommends that adults and children reduce their daily intake of free sugars to less than 10% of their total energy intake. A further reduction to below 5%, or roughly 25 grams, 6 teaspoons per day, would provide additional health benefits. Now keep that in mind, because we're talking about added sugar, because again, fructose, sugar that's found in fruit, sugar that's found in milk, these things that are already inside these products, right? But we're talking about the added sugars, right? So free sugars are defined by the World Health Organization and the UN Food and Agriculture Organization in multiple reports as all monosaccharides and disaccharides added to foods by the manufacturer, cook, or consumer, plus sugar naturally present in honey, syrups, and fruit juices, right? So let's see how practical it is in our daily diets, because we have to understand that these diets that we have now have been taught to us, right? These are not our natural way of eating, so to speak. So I got this chart here. We're gonna have a little fun with this chart. So what was the guideline? What did it say? It said that between the range of 6 teaspoons, right, 25 grams a day, we should keep it at. 25 grams a day would have an added benefit to our health. So if we look at just on a regular basis, let's look at breakfast, right? We look at breakfast. 6.5 teaspoons of sugar is in a 90 gram or 1.5 cup of cereal, right? 6 teaspoons of sugar is in a 300 milliliter bottle of orange juice. 6 teaspoons of sugar is in a small tub of apple juice, right? 3 teaspoons of sugar is in your toast. So just off of breakfast alone, that's how much? We got some mad people in the building. That's 21 grams of sugar, 21.5 grams of sugar. Teaspoons. Right? So let's move on to just say you have a snack or something that day. Say you have some unhealthy, what is that, purple drink, right? Or say you wanted to have some graham crackers, sesame snaps, they have one on there, 3.5 teaspoons of sugar, 8 teaspoons of sugar, right? Now let's go down to where it says dinner, or even lunch, right? And it's not even giving you the full additives of all these other elements that's on here to show how much sugar we're actually getting, right? So this total for what they just pointed out is a total of 40 teaspoons of sugar. And again, it said that the recommended value was 25 grams or 6 teaspoons for added health benefit. So just off of that standard alone, we're constantly craving or allowing sugar in our body. So the sugar addiction, the perpetual cycle. And this is how it works, right? It is a cycle, it is a drug, right? One, you eat sugar, you like it, you crave it, and it has addictive properties. If you were to wean yourself or to go off of sugar for a week or two, you wouldn't even crave it. Right? It would taste so sweet to you once you go back to it that you wouldn't even notice that it's like, oh man, this is, but once you're constantly eating sugar all the time, it becomes as commonplace, right? But challenge yourself to wean yourself off of sugar for 2 weeks, and it'll taste so sweet to you that it will probably turn your stomach, right? But the cycle is you eat sugar, you like it, you crave it, right? Your blood sugar levels spike, dopamine is released in the brain, and dopamine is in charge of addiction, right? Mass insulin is secreted to drop your blood sugar levels. Your blood sugar levels fall rapidly. High insulin levels cause immediate fat storage. Your body craves the lost sugar high. So you're high off of the sugar, but then you fall into a low, and your body's now craving that high. So what happens? Hunger and cravings. Your low blood sugar levels cause increased appetite and cravings, thus the cycle is repeated. Because you're constantly chasing that high. You want to give your body what it wants because it's now on a low again. And that's why they compare it to some of the controlled substances. So are all carbs created equal? Right? The answer is no. Slower burning carbs with more fiber keep blood sugar even, whereas fast burning carbs can make you crash and may lower performance. Right? Blood sugar after eating slower fast carbs. If you have a fast burning carb, it's going to spike you, it's going to give you a super high, and it's going to drop you down. It's gonna keep you on that cycle. But if you have slow burning carbs, it's gonna give you a more of a continuous arch. It's gonna allow you to just power through, right? It's gonna burn a lot slower. Think of it as fuel. If you have like a fuel that ignites pretty quickly, it's gonna burn out pretty quickly. But if you have a fuse that's 40 feet long, it's gonna continuously burn slow, right? So let's get an example of some fast burning carbs as opposed to slow burning carbs. And I know this may be tough for some of you to see. So good carbs, well, we'll start with the bad carbs, right? Fruit juices. And you would think that, okay, why is fruit juices, if it's coming from fruit, a bad source of carbs? Because you don't have, when you have the whole fruit, it's not the sugar that's negative for you. But when you start to, if you don't have the fiber along with the fruit to draw out some of the sugar, you're getting all that just pretty much straight up sugar. That's why it's better to eat an orange than to press it for orange juice. Because how many oranges does it take to make a glass of orange juice? It'll take about 5-6 oranges, right, to make a glass of orange juice. So if you think that that's all sugar, but you'll be hard pressed to eat 5 or 6 oranges in one setting, right? Because it just takes a while for your body to consume that, right? So fruit juices, soda or pop. We know that soda is it's like Satan's soft drink, right? Cookies, pastries, cakes, white bread, white crackers, regular pasta, chocolates and other candy, ice cream, frozen yogurt, and any other frozen treat, potato chips, French fries. And why is this? Because they have the low fiber, they're refined or processed, you digest them very fast, right? You can eat like a whole plate of French fries and you'd still be hungry like 20 minutes later. It has like that Chinese food feeling to it, right? Your energy levels deplete quicker, right? You eat some of this stuff and then you feel full. You don't feel like moving. You just feel like kicking back and you're just like, ugh, feel stuffed, right? Your energy levels are depleting. They have a lot of added sugars, high insulin levels, high glycemic. Your carbs convert into fat cells, causing weight gain. Because it's not a constant burn. Your body can't store all of that sugar, so it just looks to store it in your fat cells because it can't use all of it at once because it's at such high levels, right? So let's get some examples of good carbs. Right? You have your fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, and yes, fresh vegetables, it's the fiber, it's the nutrients that are in them, right? The legumes, the beans, peas, lentils, whole grains, brown rice. Now rice does contain sugar, right? Because it is a carb. It's a wheat. It breaks down like carbs, right? But there's a more nutritional value to it. That's why you can't just, if you eat tons and tons of rice, it also is a carb, right? It could also do damage as well, especially when you start to add other things to your rice. But just straight up brown rice, quinoa, pure oats, pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, sunflower seeds, sweet potatoes, walnuts, peanuts, almonds, macadamia nuts, hazelnuts. Because one of these things, they're good, they have healthy fats, healthy oils, right? So when you eat them, you feel the sensation of fullness, but it's not something that's putting you to bed, right? So it's something that's allowing you to burn off a lot slower. So now we're going to get into some of the factors, right? Weight loss, because there's an obesity epidemic, and a lot of us try to, or when you look out in the social construct, they try to blame it on, you need to get out there, be more active, or you need to go on a particular diet, watch your lifestyle, right? But they never pinpoint the actual culprit, right? They always overshadow or overlook sugar because sugar is a main staple. So we're going to get into some of the ways that sugar versus fat, right? It's sugar that's actually making you fat and not the fat, because there's healthy fats. Avocado has healthy fats that you need, right? So the average American eats 152 pounds of sugar, right? 146 pounds of flour, which converts to sugar per year. Because think about all the different types of bread, pastries, just all the different types of carbs that are made from flour. And this is why it's key, because we're coming up on the Feast of Unleavened Bread, that we take this into consideration when we have to go off of that leaven, right? You know, a lot of times I use the Feast of Unleavened Bread to catapult myself to kind of wean myself off of the bread entirely, right? So that much sugar makes your cells numb to insulin's call. So you see a lot of people being pre-diabetic or being misdiagnosed with diabetes because their blood sugar is spiked so high, so it's their body is craving now something to regulate that in their system, right? You pump out more and more insulin to pull blood sugar levels down. And your body can't burn all that sugar and stores it as fat for a rainy day. You become insulin resistant and your metabolism goes haywire. And think about that, right? Just all from eating sugar, right? Constant consumption of sugar. So you actually need fat to function, right? Your body needs healthy fats to function. We're not going to go into everything your body needs. We're kind of more just focused on sugar and the dangers, but you actually need fat to function, right? Your body is 15 to 30% fat. Your 10 trillion cells need fat to build cell walls. Cell walls made of high quality fats metabolize insulin better. They help regulate your blood sugar levels. You feel less hungry as a result. You store less fat and burn more of it. So a lot of times we will look to different meats for fat, right? But that's giving us protein, but we don't have a good source of healthy fats in our life to regulate the sugar intake, the massive sugar intake that we have. So we'll see a lot of people nowadays being diagnosed with diabetes, right? Just based off of their diet and what they're eating. So all fats aren't created equal either, right? Sugar has over 250 names, but sugar is sugar. It always does the same damage. So don't get misconstrued or led astray believing that, you know, you have all natural honey. It's not sugar. You can just dump mounds and mounds of that inside your coffee and you'll be good, right? Sugar is still sugar, right? It'll still spike you if you can't have too much. Everything in moderation, right? So fat has many types: saturated, monosaturated, polyunsaturated, trans fats, which are horrible, and subtypes. Each behaves differently. Some fats like omega-3 are helpful, some fats like trans are harmful, and some are neutral. So omega-3 refers to the fats that you get from the fish, right? They have healthy omega-3 acids that help you to burn or break down certain things in your body. Low-fat diets boomerang. We tend to eat more starch and sugar to make up for the lost fat. Because our body, again, when you deprive your body of one thing, it's going to crave another thing. So that's why it has to be an overall change. You can't, so we have certain diets out there like, what is the Atkins diet? You have certain diets where you can just eat meat, right? Certain diets where you only have certain carbs, right? But what it's doing is it's your body has to overcompensate for the things that it's missing out on, right? So a diet high in starch and sugar increases inflammation and encourages diabetes, or diabetes and obesity. Right? A dangerous, small, dense form of cholesterol builds up, increasing your risk for heart attacks. In a recent study, high-fat, low-carb diets burn more calories than low-fat, high-carb diets and better improve cholesterol and insulin resistance. Right? High-fat, low-carb diets burn more calories than low-fat, high-carb diets. Again, because of the constant, if you have more carbs in your diet, you're just adding more sugar, right? Whole foods diets rock. The best way to keep weight off is to eat a whole food diet with quality fats, fiber, and carbs, like dry beans that won't spike blood sugar. Right? Quality fats are found in extra virgin olive oil, avocados, extra virgin coconut oil, some nuts and seeds, eggs, and fatty fish. Avoid frankenfoods at all costs. These are processed foods packed with hidden sugars, trans fat, and inflammatory vegetable oils like corn and soy. So you ever turn around, you get something from the supermarket, you turn it around, and it has all these different names that you can't pronounce, right? If it don't say, like, I like oatmeal, right? You know why I like oatmeal? Because you get a box of oatmeal, you turn it around, and it says ingredients, it says oats. It's no long list of line, like what else do you need in there besides what you're actually buying, right? Why do I need all these different names that I can't pronounce that I have to Google to see, what they're doing? It's a man-made product. That's why I said we've come so far from actual food. We don't have food anymore. We have food products. So a lot of times we put this in our body and we wonder why it's having this dramatic effect on us, right? It's not food anymore. We should be eating whole foods, actual foods that come from the earth, right? Foods that are grown, not created in a lab. So one of the things that I like to do is to inform people about this site if you haven't known about it already. The Food and Drug Administration has a recall site that you can go on. So make sure you take down this address, this web address. It's recalls, market withdrawals, and safety alerts. So you go to fda.gov and you type in for your recalls. And it lists all the current recalls. When I made this presentation, it just so happened to be in December of last year. But one of the things that it was listing, right? Eat Smart Salad shakeups, right? And one of the reasons for the recall was listeria. Listeria. And I don't know if anyone knows about listeria, but it's fatal in humans, right? Listeria is the species of pathogenic bacteria that causes the infection listeriosis. It is a facultative anaerobic bacteria capable of surviving in the presence or absence of oxygen. It can grow and reproduce inside the host cell and is one of the most virulent foodborne pathogens. With 20 to 30% of foodborne listeriosis infection in high-risk individuals may be fatal. Responsible for an estimated 1,600 illnesses and 260 deaths in the United States annually. Listeriosis ranked third in total numbers of death among foodborne bacterial pathogens, with fatality rates exceeding even Salmonella, right? So, and we look at the numbers, right? You look at, 1,600 illnesses, 260 deaths. That's just the reported ones they were able to actually link to listeria, right? Think of the other countless, because a lot of people don't go to the hospital, right? So they'll always try to pinpoint it on something like, oh, did you have your flu vaccination? It's flu season, right? And then they'll go into the hospital on a different pretext. They'll give you some type of medication, and you'll suffer complications from that medication, and they'll never trace it back to the source. They'll always trace it back to the symptom. You have another one on here, Northwest Cuisine Creations, fresh and local. The sandwiches, the problem they was recalled was for E. coli, right? Moonstruck, undeclared hazelnuts. Better not have an allergy to any type of hazelnuts because they just put them in there and don't have to put it on the label, right? Inspired Organics sunflower butter. And that, it sounds healthy, right? Sunflower butter, but it has listeria, right? So it's a good site to go on, the recalls, because by law they have to list these recalls when the manufacturer finds out what's going on with them. So how does too much sugar actually affect your body? For your brain. Eating sugar gives your brain a huge surge of a feel-good chemical called dopamine, which explains why you're more likely to crave a candy bar at 3 p.m. than an apple or a carrot. Because whole foods like fruit and veggies don't cause the brain to release as much dopamine, your brain starts to need more and more sugar to get the same feeling of pleasure that causes those gotta have it feelings for your after dinner ice cream that are so hard to tame. Right? Your mood. The occasional candy or cookie can give you a quick burst of energy or a sugar high by raising your blood sugar levels fast. When your level drops as your cells absorb the sugar, you may feel jittery and anxious, or that's known as the dreaded sugar crash. But if you're reaching into the candy jar too often, sugar starts to have an effect on your mood beyond that 3 p.m. slump. Studies have linked a high sugar intake to a greater risk of depression in adults. Because again, it's overworking your system. It's overworking your natural system of that high and low feeling. So that chemical is beginning to burn out. So you can't now regulate your own mood because you don't have any chemicals to regulate your own mood. Teeth or your joints. Candy can rot your teeth. Bacteria that cause cavities love to eat sugar, lingering in your mouth after you eat something sweet. That's why it's always good to brush after eating. Brush after eating because those bacteria just sit on your teeth, and a lot of times that's what eats it away. So if you only brush in the morning or at night, and not brushing in between meals, you're leaving certain bacteria on your teeth to consume it away. So a lot of times we have dental issues, have fillings or cavities, because we're not diligent when we're eating sugars and we're leaving it in our teeth too long. Right? Eating lots of sweets has been shown to worsen joint pain because of the inflammation they cause in the body. Plus, studies show that sugar consumption can increase your risk of developing rheumatoid arthritis. Right? Now, your skin. Another side effect of inflammation, it may make your skin age faster. Sugar attaches to a protein in your bloodstream and creates harmful molecules called AGEs, or advanced glycation end products. These molecules do exactly what they sound like they do, age your skin. They have been shown to damage collagen and elastin in your skin, protein fibers that keep your skin firm and youthful. The result, wrinkles and saggy skin. And we think that it's a product of aging, right? But it's all connected to what we're eating, what we're consuming, right? A lot of us, what's the old saying, black don't crack, right? And a lot of times when we start to now, if we were to wean off of that, start to drink heavy amounts of water, our skin will automatically get that natural shine back to it. But you see that a lot of it is just coming from the different types of food that we're eating, or the over amounts of sugar in our body. Liver and your pancreas. Right? An abundance of added sugar may cause your liver to become resistant to insulin, an important hormone that helps turn sugar in your bloodstream into energy. This means your body isn't able to control your blood sugar levels as well, which can lead to type 2 diabetes. Right? Your liver can't take as much sugar as the rest of your body, so your liver is very susceptible to that. Right? So a lot of times it'll lead to that diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. Right? When you eat, your pancreas pumps out insulin. But if you're eating way too much sugar and your body stops responding properly to insulin, your pancreas starts pumping out even more insulin. Eventually, your overworked pancreas will break down and your blood sugar levels will rise, setting you up for type 2 diabetes and heart disease. Right? So again, you're overworking your system because you're forcing your body to go into overdrive. And it gets dangerous when we start to speak about the heart, right? When you eat excess sugar, the extra insulin in your bloodstream can affect your arteries, part of your body's circulatory system. It causes their walls to grow faster than normal and get tense, which adds stress to your heart and damages it over time, right? So if you think it's causing it to contract, right? Grow faster and then get tense. It's contracting your heart, right? This can lead to heart disease, heart attacks, and strokes. Research also suggests that eating less sugar can help lower blood pressure, a major risk factor for heart disease. Plus, people who eat a lot of added sugar, where at least 25% of their calories come from added sugar, are twice as likely to die of heart disease as those whose diets include less than 10% of total calories from added sugar. Right, so these are the studies that are out there concerning sugar. But you'll never see someone come on and say, no, sugar's the culprit, we need to cut out sugar, because again, it's a mainstay for the financial market. It's one of the biggest, most predominant things in the industry, right? Sugar's in everything. For your kidneys, if you have diabetes, too much sugar can lead to kidney damage. The kidneys plays an important role in filtering your blood sugar. Once blood sugar levels reach a certain amount, the kidneys start to let excess sugar into your urine. If left uncontrolled, diabetes can damage the kidneys, which prevent them from doing their job in filtering out waste in your body. This can lead to kidney failure, right? So you cannot, so now your body is becoming more and more toxic because it can't filter out the waste that you're eating from other things, right? Because it's just, you're starting to excrete now sugar. And it's another important thing to understand when it comes to calcium, right? I found out that one of the things, our bones are very brittle and they break easily. And one of the things we become is calcium deficient. But one of the things that they looked at and studied was that even though we drink an enormous amount of milk, we're still calcium deficient. Why is that? Because of overabundance of sugar in milk. And also, when you start to we take calcium supplements as well. So when you start to take on too much calcium in your body secretes the excess calcium in your urine. Right. So weight gain and fertility. Research shows that people who drink sugar between beverages tend to weigh more and be at higher risk for type 2 diabetes than those who don't. One study even found that people who increased their sugar intake gained about 1.7 pounds in less than 2 months. And one common side effect of chronically high levels of sugar in the bloodstream is that it can make men impotent. Right? So we look at a lot of the sterilization that they have for the black men in this country and the black women in this country. Right? They're looking to marginalize and keep us at bay, so they look to do it in our food, in the economic structures that they set up, right? And a lot of the different constructs that are set up in the society is geared toward dwindling our numbers down. So that's one of the things we have to really be focused or be mindful of. Right? So how much sugar do we eat on the daily? Too much sugar, right? So one of the things we have to understand, we have to focus on is that anything that's in abundance, everything has to be in moderation. We have to learn to really be diligent with our temples, because if our temples are not operating at a high level, then we're feeling depressed, we're feeling low, we're feeling sleepy. How can we now serve the Most High at our full capacity? If we dedicated our temples and our minds and our hearts to the Most High, how can we now serve Him when we're feeling certain lows? Right? We always speak about having a balance as far as your spiritual, your physical, and your mental. When all three of those things are in balance, you can perform tasks that you're unstoppable at that moment, right? Because all of those things are ringing at once. But when one of those things are deficient, if your spiritual is deficient, and your physical and your mental is on point, then you're just out there in the world, right? You start to stray away from the truth. So any one of those things that are deficient, you now run the risk of not being complete. So health is very important, and that's why one of the things Christ did, one of the first things He did was go out and heal. Because our health has a direct effect on our spirit. If we're not healthy, we feel a certain way in our spirit. We may have the faith that we will get over it, but at certain times it'll be such a weight on our spirit that we'll feel like it's the end. So we have to be mindful and take the proper steps to preserve our sanity and watch the things that we eat, because it's a similitude. If this is the temple, we're just like, why don't we just have pork, man? Right? Why are we letting all of these other different elements in? Right? It's just the same type of instance. So with that, shalom. Let's get the Most High hand. Any questions or even statements? Anybody have any personal testimonies as far as people dealing with sugar? We want to kind of open up the conversation just to get talking about sugar in general.
So was brown sugar bad?
All sugar is sugar, and anything in excess is going to be bad for you, right? The Bible teaches us that things in moderation, all things keep in moderation. So when you start to overuse these things, brown sugar, white sugar, it's just brown sugar is less processed than white sugar. Right? White sugar is white because
Bleach, right?
it's not so much bleach. It gets its coloring from the bone char, the charred bones of different animals.
This is still an eye-opener to even a person like myself who study the food's relationship to the body. Oh, I'm sorry. I look like this.
Here, we're online. Here.
Okay, can you hear me?
Copy.
As I stated before, the instance of sugar seems to be everywhere. Over an abundance. And when you even think that you are not having a meal with extremely low levels of sugar, you really are taking in sugar, because if I'm recalling correctly, biologically, just about everything breaks down into sugar for the body, right?
Right. A lot of carbs break down into sugar. Your body needs fat, fiber, and sugar to function, right? But you have healthy carbohydrates and you have the negative carbohydrates, right? Sugar is a natural part. So when you think of something like high fructose corn syrup. The reason that's so damaging to our bodies is because they extract it from the fruit and they concentrate it in a form where it's an unnatural sugar level, and then they reintroduce it into drinks and whatnot to sweeten it. So it's an unnatural form. These are not things you wouldn't get these type of levels if you were to just eat a piece of fruit, right? And that's why it's so detrimental. Your body can process certain sugar in the fruit because it has the fiber and it has the cell walls and the membranes in it as well. So it's not just a sugar rush. That's why it's better to eat whole fruits than the juicing, right? So the flip side would be, you know, people that juice for nutrients, like they juice different greens and whatnot. So the thing, right, the same thing goes. You're getting so much nutrients from juicing because you don't have to worry about the fiber, right?
I usually hold on to the fiber when I use the juicer. I use the juicer, I use the fiber in making the breads, something like that, but still, the breads that we eat, they're basically watered down terribly. I don't care how organic.
Right. Right. A lot of the bread is, especially a lot of the processed bread. You go to the supermarket and try to buy a loaf of bread, right? It has all these different enzymes. You see all these different. You see words on there that shouldn't be on there. I thought bread was what, flour, yeast, wheat, water, right?
Right.
That's bread.
Yeah.
But you have to think that they have to put so much preservatives in it to keep it and to make it stay so long, right? Because if you were to bake your own bread at home, if you left that bread out, it would be hard in like 2 or 3 days, right? But think now if you left some of that white bread out, it's still soft, right? It's got that tweaky thing going on with it. It never breaks down, right? Eventually you'll start growing mold on it, but it's an unnatural level of preservatives and other chemicals and additives in the bread. Right?
I had a precept to go along with your Ecclesiasticus chapter 37, verse 27.
You want to read that, bro?
My child, test yourself while you live. See what is bad for you and do not give into it. For not everything is good for everyone, and no one enjoys everything. Do not be greedy for every delicacy, and do not eat without restraint. For overeating brings sickness, and gluttony leads to nausea, excuse me. Many have died of gluttony, but the one who guards against it prolongs his life. This is going to Ecclesiastes 38, or Sirach 38, chapter 38, verse 9. I'm sorry, chapter, 38, verse 9. Go ahead. My child, when you are ill, do not delay, for pray to the Lord and he will heal you. Give up your faults and direct your hands rightly, and cleanse your heart from all sin.
That's it on that?
Yes.
All praises. I mean, and the scripture is there for our learning and our knowledge, right? So we understand that overeating leads to that gluttony, leads to that feeling of pleasure. And a lot of the food nowadays feeds those pleasure senses of our brain. So it makes us want more and more of it. And one of the things, if you remember MSG, right? Anybody remember MSG? right? So one thing about MSG that it's a crystal, right? It's a crystal seasoning. It looks kind of like it's white, right? One characteristic of MSG is that it tricks the brain into thinking whatever it's eating is the best thing you've ever had in your life. And you could put MSG on dirt, and you would consume it as if it was the best meal you ever had in your life, because it tricks the brain into thinking that, right? So that's why they had to ban that substance from one of the most prevalent things or uses of it was in Chinese foods, right? So a lot of times they were having the old food, they would put MSG on it, and you would consume it, people were getting sick because they were eating food that was way past its prime.
I got one more scripture too. Piggyback on what the brother said.
I am back.
It's Sirach 38 and 3 and 4. It says, the skill of the physician shall lift up his head, and in the sight of great men he shall be admiration. It says, the Most High have created medicines out of the earth, and he that is wise will never abort from them. When he has understanding, he will understand that 90% of the stuff we eat today is coming from the earth, but it's coming from the earth with a twist. They put the little sprinkles, whatever they're doing to it. It's not coming directly from the earth. And he's telling you also that you can heal yourself with whatever you have. You can be healed from the earth, because he made medicines out of the earth. So it's all a game when you see them going to the pharmacy and you get little white pills and X, Y, and Z. None of that stuff is coming from the earth. So it's an honor of a good physician. So you can tell a physician because it's certain doctors that may tell you, listen, change your diet, that's going to heal you. And you have certain doctors that will tell you, okay, take this pill and come back to me in 2 weeks. You come back in 2 weeks, now you got cancer, AIDS, syphilis, and 5 other diseases. Most I've been medicines out of the earth.
And a lot of times when you're dealing with these hospitals, they're only treating the symptoms that you're showing at the time. Right. But the root of the issue is, a lot of it sometimes is spirituality, being chastened of the Lord, or it can even be your diet, what you're eating. Because it's a simple equation: garbage in, garbage out. Right? If you put the wrong type of fuel in, if you put some sugar in your gas tank, right, you don't have a car no more. Right? So it's the same type of, our body burns certain types of fuel, so if we put the right type of fuel in it, we'll always get a better outcome. But we've been duped into eating these type of elements, or these type of meals that we learned in our captivity. Because when you look at historically what we harvest, right? We ate what was in season. That's another big thing. You have to eat what's in season. We can't be looking to buy different fruits and fish and meats that are not in season, right? Because a lot of times they've been shipped or stored, flash frozen, right? We're not getting the proper nutrient content out of these things, right? I don't want like a banana that doesn't grow. We should be eating. I mean, you look on your fruit nowadays, it's like from Venezuela, right? Because they have the season for that, right? You in the dead of winter eating summer fruit, right? So we have to understand we have to eat what's in season, because that's going to give us our fresh outcome. We have to look into even planting our own foods again, right? Get back to doing it, being self-sufficient, right? Having our own, building our own, planting our own, right? It's nothing to start growing different herbs even in your house or your home without Prophet Sana. All you need is a light source. You can grow basil, parsley. You can actually grow your own types of herbs, right in your home, right? And it's funny because they've actually outlawed the sale of different seeds. And you would think that, the seeds are, you think of seeds, right? They have companies like Monsanto, who they recently changed their name, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you have companies like Monsanto who will put different legislation in, having you not be able to use certain seeds, and then sell you seeds that destroy themselves when they produce. So you'll have seedless watermelon. Who in their right mind has ever heard of a seedless watermelon?
All day.
Right?
Yeah. Should never been.
Like how does that even happen? Like you're not doing me no favors by not having the seeds. I've grown accustomed to just spitting the seeds out when you're eating it, right? It's just something that comes second nature, right? But yeah, these things we've gone from food to now food products.
Right.
Any other questions? Statements?
That's been my experience. I had it kind of bad with the coffee. I used to get 10 and 10. So now hearing that, I'm going to chop it down a little bit.
10 and 10, what's that?
10 sugars and 10 creams.
Oh, okay. Come. I mean, coffee, if you were to just to drink it black, it'll actually have a lot more, give you a lot more of a boost.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
But the sugar and cuts it down a little bit. You're still getting that sugar boost, but again, you're getting that crash from it.
Oh, yeah.
So do you ever experience that when you're drinking the coffee with the sugar?
Yeah, when I was getting the 10 and 10, and I was driving, and then I start crashing, like falling asleep on the road while I'm driving, and I'm like, oh no, I gotta cut it out, because my father that's dangerous. The sugar is the most killer, for us. So I'm like, all right, but I'm doing good though. I do it 4 sugars and 4 creams now. I bet. But you're right though. It do mess up your teeth, the sugar.
Right. All praise.
This is Sirach again, chapter 34, verse 9. An educated person knows many things, and one with much experience knows what he is talking about. An inexperienced person knows few things, but he that has traveled inquires much cleverness. So, having experience with living in other places, I've seen people change their diets. Like when I lived in Australia, when I got into fruit juice, making like these health drinks, so the alternatives from having to drink like the fruit drinks that they have. They had these smoothie shops or juicer shops everywhere. Like we have McDonald's everywhere. And that would, they would use that as a substitute. It cost more, like $7 or $8, but it was a substitute from you drinking the fruit drinks or the sodas. So, and it was a health benefit that was contributed to it. And it was a boost. So it increased your immune system, increased your ability to, your brain, because some of the fruits they were using were stimulants for the brain. So it was an overall benefit for the body, and that's where I applied that, and it allowed me to, and I continued to research it more. I wanted to add one more verse there, if that's okay. Chapter 18, verse 20. Chapter 18, verse 20. Before judgment comes, examine yourself. And at the time of scrutiny, you will find forgiveness. Before falling ill, humble yourself. And when you have sinned, and when you have sinned, repent. Let nothing hinder you from paying your vow promptly, and do not wait until death to be released from it.
And just a personal testimony when it comes to sugar, right? Well, a lot of people don't know. I used to actually be, I would say, 345 pounds, and I wore 46 waists, right? So what I did was, I started to really analyze what I was eating, because I was drinking a lot of soda, eating a lot of Chinese food, just eating, just a lot of different things that were. But the one thing that started to get me is that I used to look on the back of different packages, and I started seeing all these wild, crazy words. So I made this decree that if I can't pronounce it, I'm not going to put it in my body. Right? If I don't know what it is, then I'm not going to consume it. Right? So that, the weight started to come off over years, but and it wasn't something that I was exercising or anything like that. I rarely exercised. I didn't exercise at all. I was still eating other kinds of junk food, but just cutting out soda and cutting out these different snacks, processed snacks. The weight started to dramatically come off, which shows you that sugar is just. It leads to that obesity and diabetes that's plaguing our people, right? But that food it really has a hold on them as far as that addiction goes, because it is really addictive, and unless you understand what's going on, it may be hard to overcome. So we have to just be mindful of that, and just try to help a lot of our brothers and sisters that are dealing with that are because it's not meant for our bodies to be stretched out to certain capacities, right? It's called stretch marks for a reason, right? And I'm not saying that I have to have a perfect body or anything like that, but our bodies are made, right? And of course in the Most High's image. But anytime it's stretched upon or past the capacity, you have stretch marks, right? So that shows you that you shouldn't be going too much in excess, right? So, all right. Who's here for the first time? Any first timers? All right. Who are you and why you're here?
My name is Lavinia, and the reason why I'm here, well, I've been watching YouTube channels or whatever, and then I start working at this new job, and I met our brother, Ed, and I seen his little twisties in his beard, and I'm like, you a Hebrew? And he like, yeah, sister. And I was telling him, I'm from Syracuse, so I'm like, I don't see no
Israelites. Israelites?
I ain't see what we doing here, congregation or whatever. I don't see it in Syracuse or whatever. And he check us out, and I'm here.
All praises, all praises. Good to have you, sister. Welcome, sister. All praises.
Thank you.
Did we have any announcements? Did Sis Naomi?
Oh, I can make a quick announcement.
Yeah. Any announcements?
I got one too.
Okay, I got some.
Just really appreciate
We have the 2019 calendars out. I believe historytimes.org and gatheringasone.org. And yes, it has all the holy days. It has the calendar to follow, how we follow it, and you can not really follow it how we used to follow it, but it'll put you on track to follow the Most High the way we need to with their days. So it's explains a lot. It's $20 if you want one. Historytimes.org or agatheringasone.org.
All praises.
So
I just have a quick announcement. I just want to let everyone know that our new moon is coming up, our new month, our spring holy day. So we'll be having a feast on March 9th. It starts at 2 p.m. And all are invited. If you plan on bringing a dish, you can contact Sister Naomi. And I believe your sewing class is rescheduled?
Yeah, we want to reschedule it. We haven't, for next Sunday, I believe it was the 10th, we wanted to get together. But it needs to be rescheduled and we haven't picked a date. So the upcoming day, Sister Naomi she wanted to speak to some of the brothers before she set a date. So, yeah, so for those who were interested, we'll get with you. We'll let you know.
All right. Yeah. Let's sign up for that sewing class, and we we will have that forthcoming. That's at this time. Let's say shalom to those joining us online.